James Henderson pleaded guilty to killing 5 members of his best friend's family, including, and this is tough to even say, an unborn baby.
Well, I'm going to have to get something on. Stay out, Iris. Let me have it, son of a bitch.
A man leaped from the public gallery and attacked a convicted killer who'd just been sentenced to life in prison. The unidentified attacker was wrestled to the ground by court security officers in the courtroom for the July 26 sentencing of Cole Henderson. He was sentenced in June 2015 for second-degree murder in the killing of Richard Morrison and 4 other people, including an unborn baby.
Strengths of the evidence that led to this plea. Per State's Exhibit A, the defendant has stipulated and agreed to the truth and accuracy of these following statements.
Spectators in the packed courtroom, family and supporters of both parties were in attendance, sat stunned, watching before being hustled from the courtroom. As they emerged, more officers arrived on the run and rushed into the courtroom. The outburst came at the end of an address by Superior Court Justice Laura Bird, who ruled Henderson must serve 15 years in the penitentiary before he's eligible to apply for parole.
We get to Mr. Sanders, Ms. Farrelly, and I think you just answered the question I had. Every Johnson named in the indictment is...
James Henderson killed 4 people and an unborn baby in 2014. He shot his friend, Jerrio Taylor, along with 3 others, including a pregnant woman. A little girl was also hurt. Police arrested Henderson 6 months later. James Henderson, armed with a 9mm gun, entered the home on East 92nd Street and Wade Park Avenue. He shot and killed the victims in cold blood. The weapon he used was later found to match the casings and bullets recovered from the crime scene and the bodies of the victims.
The defendant has stipulated and agreed to the truth and accuracy of these following statements. First of all, that he acted alone in causing these deaths in counts 1 through 5 and the injuries in counts 6 and 7. Second, he knew Sharita Johnson was in an advanced stage of pregnancy. Third, his fingerprint was found in the home on a TV in the living room. Fourth, telecommunication cell towers placed his telephone number, his cell phone, at the vicinity of the scene at the time of the murders. Fifth, his DNA was identified by the Cuyahoga County Regional Forensic Scientific Laboratory as being found on 2 casings at the scene, one inside the home and one outside the home, in the driveway.
Henderson was arrested with a concealed 9mm gun loaded with 15 rounds. DNA samples taken from Henderson matched those found at the crime scene. He initially claimed he saw the weapon on railroad tracks.
Thank you, Your Honor. Next is Patricia Johnson, who is Sharita Johnson's mother, and she would like to address you. She was also Jerrio's grandmother and Jawan's grandmother.
Okay. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
You're welcome to say what you think.
I'm Sharita's mother. And it's been so hard for my family. It's been very hard. It's been very hard for our kids. For Janiyah and Jelante and Janiyah. Now I have to take on the role as the grandmother and as the mother. And I want to do it well. And what I have to say to you, you over there laughing, you over there smirking and smiling.
Henderson pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty, agreeing to a life sentence instead. The courtroom erupted when a relative of one of the victims lunged at Henderson, calling him a coward. Families expressed their anger and sorrow, noting Henderson's lack of remorse. Johnson called Sparks Henderson pitiful, saying, "I'm glad you're going to suffer every day of your life. You're not going to go out the easy way and ask to be killed." Seconds later, Johnson charged toward Sparks Henderson. Sheriff's deputies intervened and pushed him out of the courtroom. Sparks Henderson's attorneys have argued their client wasn't eligible for a death sentence because he is developmentally disabled and has an IQ of 73. James Henderson was charged with multiple counts, including aggravated murder, attempted aggravated murder, felonious assault, and aggravated robbery.
You are entitled to a fair trial on every single count of the original indictment. I have great confidence in my ability to preside over a fair trial, and you certainly go into such a trial presumed innocent. But I make no prediction on what the outcome at your trial of all the original charges with the capital specifications would be. I do assume that you and your lawyers have talked about this and have made some reasonable estimate of how likely or not it is that you'd be found guilty and possibly put to death. This is a long way, Mr. Sparks Henderson, of introducing a short question, and that is this. Do you want your fair trial on the original indictment or this plea bargain? Mr. Sparks Henderson, then I'm going to ask you, how do you plead to count 1 as amended, the aggravated murder of Lemon S. Bryant on November 21st, 2014, an unclassified felony requiring a sentence of life imprisonment?
By pleading guilty, he avoided the death penalty, but will spend the rest of his life in prison.
At 5, we told you about 18-year-old Mitchell Savickas' sentence of life in prison for the murder of Isaiah Blue.
Daniel Benavides was also sentenced today for the crime.
The man who pulled the trigger, killing a Kelloggsville student during a robbery, will spend the rest of his own life in prison. Isaiah Blue, a 17-year-old high school student, was tragically murdered on January 27, 2016. The incident occurred after Blue and 2 friends exited a rapid bus on 44th Street at Rhodes Avenue. They were followed by Mitchell Savickas and another individual, Benavides. The confrontation quickly escalated into violence.
Because the facts are going to show that the defendant shot Isaiah Blue 4 times. Once in the chest, and 3 times as Isaiah Blue was 3 times in the back as Isaiah Blue was running away.
Savickas, armed with a rifle, shot Blue multiple times. Benavides, who had a non-working gun, participated in the attempted robbery. The motive behind the attack was robbery, but it ended in a senseless killing. Blue's friends witnessed the horrific event and were left traumatized. Police quickly launched an investigation.
Benavides didn't pull the trigger, but he did have a gun and was with Mitchell Savickas the night he murdered Blue. His attorney reminded the judge of that, which Seaton echoed.
They gathered evidence from the crime scene, including the rifle used by Savickas. Witnesses provided crucial information that helped identify the suspects. Savickas and Benavides were arrested shortly after the incident.
And I'm not permitted to represent myself due to mental health and to gain a lack of knowledge. I will not know what questions are leading to, or those that are hearsay, or what answers are hearsay. These are made best to consider.
During the trial, Savickas admitted to shooting Blue, claiming he feared for his life. However, the jury found him guilty of felony murder and 3 counts of armed robbery. Benavides was also charged for his role in the robbery attempt. Savickas was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Benavides received a lesser sentence due to his involvement being limited to the robbery attempt. In Macomb County, the murder of Jere Robertson, who was shot and killed in July 2022. The suspect, Jeffrey Clark, was charged with the murder and was brought to court for a preliminary hearing. During this hearing, the prosecution presented surveillance video evidence showing the brutal killing. The footage depicted Robertson lying in a parking lot, raising his hands in a plea for mercy, while Clark stood over him and fired multiple shots. The courtroom atmosphere was already tense, but escalated when the video was shown. Jere Robertson's twin brother, overcome with emotion and anger, left the gallery and attacked Clark. Despite Clark being handcuffed and restrained by a waist chain, Robertson's brother managed to strike him multiple times in the head and back. The backstory to this tragic incident involves a dispute between Clark and Robertson that began in Roseville. According to authorities, the argument escalated, leading Clark to fire shots at Robertson, who then fled on foot.
More than a scuffle, a near full-on brawl in court Wednesday as the family of Jeray Robertson, who was shot to death execution style, went after the man accused of so brazenly and heinously killing Robertson.
Clark, accompanied by a woman, pursued Robertson in a car, eventually catching up with him in a parking lot where the fatal shooting occurred. At the time of the shooting, Clark was wearing a GPS monitoring device, which placed him at the scene of the crime. Authorities have arrested Robertson's brother for the assault on Clark, and it remains to be seen whether he will face additional charges.
Charges the defense table, punching the suspect right in the face. Security guards quickly moving in. The dad gets off several more blows before he's tackled. That suspect is accused of killing his girlfriend and her 3-year-old son.
A father, overwhelmed by grief and rage, took justice into his own hands. The courtroom was packed, the air thick with tension, as the trial of a man accused of a brutal crime. The suspect, charged with the brutal murders of his girlfriend and her 3-year-old son, sat at the defense table, handcuffed and seemingly unrepentant. As the proceedings continued, the father of the slain woman could no longer contain his emotions. Video footage from the courtroom captures the moment he sprang from his seat, charging toward the defense table with a fury that stunned everyone.
Charges the defense table, punching the suspect right in the face. Security guards quickly moving in. The dad gets off several more blows before he's tackled. That suspect is accused of killing his girlfriend and her 3-year-old son.
He landed a powerful punch right on the suspect's face, a blow fueled by pain and anger. Security guards rushed to intervene, but the father managed to deliver several more punches before being subdued and tackled to the ground. The courtroom erupted into chaos as officials struggled to restore order. While understandable given the circumstances, the father's actions led to immediate consequences. He was found in contempt of court and sentenced to spend 7 days in jail for his outburst. The suspect, accused of killing his girlfriend and her young son, had been brought to trial to face justice for his alleged crimes. The evidence presented the events leading up to the murders, with prosecutors detailing the horrific nature of the crime.
Mother gets up from her seat and hurls towards Diamond's mother and pushes her. The two moms at one point fighting as another family member from the victim's side joins in and begins attacking DeLeon's mother. The brawl finally broken up as Diamond's uncle is handcuffed and taken away. The judge then called order and cleared the courtroom.
Frank DeLeon Jr., 17, gained notoriety for his involvement in the murder of 15-year-old Diamond Alvarez in Houston, Texas. The tragedy occurred on January 11, 2022, in a southwest Houston neighborhood. Alvarez, 16, was walking her family's dog Peanut when she was killed. DeLeon, her boyfriend at the time, was the main suspect. The motive seemed to be a love triangle. Alvarez had found out DeLeon was seeing someone else and wanted to confront him. That evening, DeLeon texted Alvarez, asking her to meet at a park on Park Manor. Not knowing his plans, she went to meet him with Peanut. During this meeting, Alvarez's family heard gunshots. They later found her body in a nearby field. Police arrested DeLeon 6 days later, charging him with murder. He posted a $250,000 bond and was put under house arrest.
That this case is a good example of the way things should work. It was resolved in under 2 years. That's almost a record here in Harris County in homicide cases.
Diamond's family says they want to move forward.
What I'm going through is not a life that I have to watch my back, that I can't go nowhere. Because we're scared.
In March, DeLeon broke his bond rules. His lawyers said he left home to go to church, but Alvarez's family didn't believe this, pointing out it was a Monday when churches are usually closed. They wanted proof. When DeLeon was arrested again for breaking the bond, Alvarez's family felt relieved. They told the media they felt safer with him in custody. The family also mentioned that DeLeon lived just 2 minutes away. DeLeon's lawyer said his client had a car accident on his way to court on Monday. He got a severe head injury and needed medical care. The district attorney's office confirmed DeLeon was in a hospital under guard.
The man accused of shooting and killing 16-year-old Diamond Alvarez has pled guilty to her murder. 19-year-old Frank De Leon Jr. accepted a plea deal and will be sentenced to 45 years behind bars.
The start of jury selection set for Monday was delayed because DeLeon didn't attend. Steve Walsh from the Harris County District Attorney's Office said DeLeon needs to see a judge about his bond before the trial can start. The police found strong evidence against DeLeon. They had text messages between him and Alvarez that showed when things happened and why. DeLeon also admitted he used to have a 9mm gun but said he got rid of it. This was important because police found a shell casing at the crime scene.
Prosecutors say DeLeon shot his 16-year-old ex-girlfriend more than 20 times near their Southwest Houston neighborhood park in January of 2022.
In the end, DeLeon pleaded guilty to murdering Diamond Alvarez. The court sentenced him to 45 years in prison. He could have gotten life in prison if he hadn't taken the plea deal.
Well, I'm going to have to get something. Stay down. I understand. Let me have it, son of a bitch.
In a courtroom scene, Randall Margraves, the father of 3 victims of former USA Gymnastics doctor Larry Nassar, could no longer contain his grief and anger. During Nassar's 3rd sentencing hearing, Margraves lunged at the disgraced doctor, creating a dramatic and chaotic moment that captured the nation's attention. The incident occurred on February 2, 2018, in Eaton County, Michigan. Margraves was present to support his daughters, who were among the many victims giving impact statements about the abuse they suffered at the hands of Nassar. As one of his daughters recounted her harrowing experience, Margraves, overcome with emotion, asked the judge if he could have 5 minutes alone with Nassar. When the judge denied his request, he asked for just 1 minute. Upon being refused again, Margraves charged at Nassar, shouting, "Let me at that son of a bitch." Court officers quickly intervened, restraining Margraves and pinning him to the ground. The courtroom was thrown into disarray as emotions ran high, with many crying and reacting to the sudden outburst. Margraves was handcuffed and led out of the courtroom. He later appeared before the judge to face potential charges for his actions. Margraves was not charged with any crime. Margraves apologized for his actions, expressing deep regret and explaining that he lost control after hearing the details of his daughter's abuse and seeing Nassar's reaction in court. Larry Nassar, a former Michigan State University and USA Gymnastics team doctor, was accused of sexually abusing hundreds of young female athletes under the guise of medical treatment.
First thing Larry Nassar ever said to me was to change into shorts with no underwear because that would make it easier for him to work on me. And within minutes, he had his fingers in my vagina. The FBI then immediately asked, "Did he insert his fingers into your rectum?" I said no, he never did. They asked if he used gloves. I said no, he never did. They asked if this treatment ever helped me. I said no, it never did. This treatment was 100% abuse and never gave me any relief. I began crying at the memory over the phone, and there was just dead silence. I was so shocked at the agent's silence and disregard for my trauma. After that minute of silence, he asked, "Is that all?" Those words in itself was one of the worst moments of this entire process for me. To have my abuse be minimized and disregarded by the people who were supposed to protect me, just to feel like my abuse was not enough.
I, too, was sexually assaulted by Larry Nassar, multiple times, at multiple appointments. My last treatment was in August 2016. I'm possibly the last child he will ever assault.
You will serve 40 to 125 years in the Michigan Department of Corrections. I believe this sentence is proportionate to the seriousness of the circumstances surrounding the offenses and of the offender.
Nassar was ultimately sentenced to 40 to 175 years in prison for his crimes, in addition to a 60-year federal sentence for possessing child pornography. As we've seen, courtroom emotions can explode when grieving families face killers. These raw moments remind us of the deep pain violent crimes leave behind. Stay tuned for more true crime stories.